Welcome to the Service MVP podcast. My name is Joe Crisara, and we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Aaron Gaynor from Eco Plumbers, Electricians, and HVAC Technicians. Aaron, welcome to our program. I really appreciate you being here.
No, Joe, I'm glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me today.
Well, today Aaron is going to, Aaron's got like he's a Renaissance man who has a lot of different layers to him. We could have like 10 podcasts or write a book, which I think he is going to write on his personal memoirs of things that he has done and achieved and failed in his life. But he always wins because he's always moving forward. But Aaron's going to cover just 3 bullet points on things that you could do to avoid disaster in your business. So 3 things that could be disastrous, but could be avoided if you make the right move. He'll give you both of those things, hopefully, so you don't just run into just give you 3 advices on the disasters, but things to avoid them as well. Aaron, why don't you talk just a little bit of a backstory? I know the backstory is pretty big, but give us just a little bit of a backstory as to how you got here. And you grew a company from a startup to a multi-million-dollar double-digit company. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, man. Well, Joe, thanks again for having me. So just give people that haven't heard the background. Plumber by trade, started the trades in 1997, straight out of high school. Was loading semi trucks at night at Value City Furniture, a warehouse here. Guy called me up. My buddy, his brother-in-law worked for Ferguson. Called up and said, "Hey, I got a guy that wants to get some young people into the trades, into plumbing." Really didn't have any idea what plumbers did on a regular basis, but I knew it was a first shift job, paid about $7 an hour, and I took it. And it was new construction, and I never left. I started in new construction plumbing and residential side of new construction plumbing, and then learned some light commercial. Got my master's plumber's license, as they called them back then, around the age of 23 years old, and started a business with my buddy, who also got into trades with me at the same time. Because like most people that get into trades that think they know how to run a business or can do it better than their boss should start a business, right? The old E-Myth, which many of you read E-Myth, or Joe, you're familiar with E-Myth. Really, that's what happened. We started that business, and then we grew it to about 3.5 million, and we went bankrupt in 06 to 07, and the housing crash. We started just losing accounts, and we couldn't sustain it. All we had was most of our business was with builders that were closing up or weren't selling homes. So we didn't really own a business. We didn't have our own identity. We were just a tax ID that basically got accounts from people. So lost that business in 07, went bankrupt, ended up back at my mom's house at 28 years old. Lost jobs, lost my house, I lost my car. I mean, I lost everything. I all the way to check systems. If anybody's ever been on check systems before, then you know what I'm talking about, right? And ended up on my mom's couch at 28 years old as a single dad with a 3-year-old son, and just looked up at him one night and said, "I promise you this won't be your life, man. I'm gonna figure it out and get to work." And got to work. Borrowed $50 from my sister, called up Braun, my service manager and friend that I've known since high school, and we all got to work. And there's a lot more in that story, but that's the real backstory of how it got there, right? And then from there, I've been fortunate enough to grow. Took a long time to get to that first million, and then to get from that million to that 5 million to 10 million to 20 million to 30 million to 40 million to 50 million to 60 million to 70 million, right? And on our way to 100 million. Been a lot of challenges along the way in the last 17 years, but I'm grateful for every one of them.
Well, you know what? I'm proud to be there on a few steps along that journey, and definitely adding some value. And I do remember when you're first kind of just getting started in that service part of the business, when you're just trying to figure it all out. So I have been. It's like one of the few people that have seen sort of the metamorphosis from starting out to finish, and it is remarkable. And great job on it wasn't what you do is not just information that you give people, it's transformation, the ability to transform from where you were to where you want to be. So definitely nobody epitomizes that more than you, and I'm glad that you're here, that people can have the honor of learning some of the things that you can do. So what are some of the things that are pitfalls, or things that we can avoid, that as the business owner, or even in just anybody in the service business, some things that are some of the traps that, trap door that could happen, just kind of get you. Anything you want to start with there? What's one of the first things you think that people could learn from that?
Well, I mean, to try to answer as the best I can without just getting into all these like tactical things, I think first thing is like one of the biggest pitfalls is just not having a true plan. Like, where are you going, right? Like, what is it? Where are you trying to grow your business to? Do you truly have a vision for your business, right? Like, what do you see into the future? Where do you think you're going? Do you have a number? Do you have a plan? Do you have a vision? And that's hard sometimes when you're just in the mix of just trying to survive. Like, I get it. Like when you're just trying to get up every day, run calls, things are coming at you. You know, tech didn't show up, dispatch did this, something happened at a customer's house, all the things that happen in small business and big business too. They happen in our business still today, right? But it's really, you really got to get a goal. Like, where do you want to go? Do you want to grow your business to 1 million, to 5 million, 10 million, 20, whatever it is. Like if we're focusing just on the business aspect, right now, right? And then you have to decide. The biggest pitfall I see from there is then, okay, maybe you get this big goal, or maybe you get too low of a goal.
But can we
And then you
stop?
have
Can we
to,
just call time out there for a second?
yeah,
Because that vision, truthfully, I do believe it is the most important thing. I was lucky enough in the early '90s to see. I seen Maurice Mayo Systems, and next some of the Contractors 2000 and things like that. And I was able to see, man, these people like it's. So let's talk. Let's stop right there because that part. So you got to get a vision. Specifically, what is it that captured the visual that you got, the vision means we can imagine that's in our imagination and we're visioning in this. It doesn't just come out of the blue. You've got to be able to see it. Seeing is believing, I always say, right?
for sure.
So just give us a little bit on that. How do you, because once you get that vision, all the other things like start to unfold because, oh, now that I know where the destination I'm going, I'm going to
Yeah.
find a way to get there, right? So tell me a little bit about that because let's just spend some time on that alone because that to me is the key component that puts the energy behind everything else. Would you agree with that? What do you think on
I
that's
agree
true?
with that for sure. I would say all of the success I've had was based on
But
setting a
what did you
goal out in
see?
front
What
of
did
me.
you see that made you say like got a fire under your ass to make
Okay.
this happen, right?
Well,
So
one was
because that's it.
one didn't have any money and I needed to eat, right, and pay bills and do stuff, right? Like that was the
So
first thing, and
that vision wasn't
disappointment from
working.
the son.
You told your
But the
son
next
that's
thing,
okay. This is that we're gonna get rid of this vision, right? So
but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it big. Like that was my thing. This ain't gonna be our life. We're gonna do it big. So big to me was
right,
like I don't know. I didn't know what big was, right, at that point, like in home service or plumbing or construction or anything. I didn't know what big was. I've seen some big, but I was living in my own bubble doing new construction because in the early 2000s that's all we did. So I had no idea what big was. So I knew I wanted to do something big, and somehow I read the book Think and Grow Rich, which you've probably heard me talk about. Other people done. I
yeah,
stumbled across this book because now I'm thinking big. So as soon as you start saying, okay, I got to think big, what is big? Your mind expands, as you just mentioned, right? Your mind starts expanding. You start noticing things that you may not have never noticed before. Like I probably had seen the book Think and Grow Rich somewhere else before in my life, but never really thought about it as something I needed to read. Or I started listening to podcasts. I started doing research on new plumbing technology, right? At this time, tankless was really starting to be big. So all of those things. But I guess to answer your question, the short is I created the goal. I don't know where it came from, how I got it. I never even met a company in this size, but I came up with $100 million to myself a long time ago, right? Over 15
got it.
something years ago, right? And then that was the mover because if I made it big enough, then I knew when I started reading that book, it's like you got to make it big enough out there for you to move into something, to reinvent yourself, right? I'd have to be somebody completely and utterly different than I was in a sense, like not the core of you don't have to erase who you are, but you have to become somebody completely different if you want to run an organization that's $100 million. You just do, right? And you have to learn
Right.
all these new skills to operate that. So it forced me to think about how do I reinvent myself? And you mentioned that earlier in this, and when you kicked this off too, Joe, you said something about, just going through the cycle of reinventing myself, right? And I think that's what life's about. Life's about reinventing yourself over and over. But without knowing how and what you're reinventing yourself into is a real challenge. And you just show up and every day you're just frustrated, you're miserable, you're upset. Because if you know where you're going in that goal, every day is just a step in the process of getting to where you want to go in the long run. And it's easier to overcome that every day because you know where you're going. You have the will to do it because you're going to work towards that goal. And those days don't hurt as bad, right? They hurt. Don't get me wrong. They're hard. It's been hard days and hard years.
Right.
But
Right.
I guess to answer your question, I hope I'm answering it the way what you're looking for there is that was it. It's just got to set this big goal and grow into it, right? And if you don't set it big enough, you may not grow into it enough, or you might not push yourself. And I always said, if I didn't hit the 100 million, and I hit 80 million, wow, that would still be something pretty big accomplishment, right? I
I
gave
want to
myself a
help.
decade.
I want to help Aaron try to recapture those steps just real quick. You started out the construction like, okay, that is not going to work. That's not a vision that could help me get to where I want to go. It temporarily gets some cash, but you're like, okay, we can't wait for a month. The cash flow is not good. This isn't going to work. Then you went into the service business, right?
Yep.
Tell us about the glimpse that you saw somewhere. You must have seen it like,
So during the
what did you
recession, during the
first see
Great,
that made you think this is the path to the $100 million? This
well,
is the path I need to take. Tell me about that.
well, during the Great Recession, obviously is when I lost my business, right? And when I
Yeah.
was sitting at home or I was going out to work, I still saw service trucks driving down the road. I'd go drive somewhere, I saw a Roto-Rooter truck, or I'd see a Mr. Rooter truck, or there's a company here called Waterworks, or some other service truck. I was like, well, they're all out working. They're all telling us we don't have any work in construction, but they're driving, they're going places. So then I started looking around at it more, and I never did service work. I never did service. I was never a service plumber. I was always a construction plumber before I started a service business, right? Have I gone out and did repairs on stuff on warranty? Yeah, but I mean like an actual service plumber? No. So that was my glimpse into it. Then I was like, all right. So then I got online. I started looking, back then, just like I kept seeing, Roto-Rooter, Mr. Rooter, you guys know, we all know the main
Yeah,
names at
yeah.
that time, right? And some other local companies. And I was like, wow, how could I compete with them? What would I do? And I started just trying to think out into the future. I was like, okay, so the world's today about rotor. What's the future about? And I thought, well, the future's got to be about technology. The future's got to be about innovation, what's coming in home service or not just home service, but what's coming in plumbing at that time. And it's like tankless. And I knew I was putting them in on some construction jobs. I was like, all right, what's next? Water conservation. And I just looked into the future and said, what is the future opportunity besides living the passive rotor? Not saying anything negative about the word rotor. It's just what is the evolution? And I thought, well, there's like eco. Eco is kind of the green. The eco, right, was coming at that time and building more. So I was like, that's the opportunity. The opportunity is there, and I need to pursue that. And that's what I did. Just try to look into the future of what didn't exist and where the gap was, and then try to say, how can I create a service or create something in that space.
Well, you did something really unique. The Eco Plumbers just rolls right off my lips. It's just like it's natural. But when you say Eco Plumbers, Electricians, and HVAC Technicians, I know something special about the name, and you've kept it in a more. You're focusing on the person who does the service rather than on a generic term like plumbing, heating, air conditioning, like everybody else does, right? Tell us about the thought process that went into that. This is a surprise question you probably weren't expecting, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you because it kind of like I was kind of trying to figure out why is that? What's different about the name that has me a little bit more? My brain starts seizing up just trying to think about the difference there. Tell me a little bit about how
Yeah.
you changed the name from Eco Plumbers, which was a good name to begin with because it just rolls off my lips, to this other one. You took on other trades, obviously, but you maintain the focus on the people who do the work rather than the company in general. Tell us what the difference, the philosophy there, and your vision there.
Yeah, I know, Joe. I know when you were here, you kept wanting to say electrical, right? All the stuff that everybody's kind of used to in a sense, especially people like us in the trades. Like we're used to it being the plumbing, the electrical, the heating and cooling, right? And because we were Eco Plumbers, which was the plumbers, right, is what people usually look for. And as we went forward, we're like, well, we want to be able to stay with the origin of the people that do the work, not the trade itself, right? Just per se, it's like the origin was the plumber, Eco Plumber. And then we are like, well, Eco Electricians, Eco HVAC Technicians, right? Or HVAC Technicians, whatever you prefer to say. So it was really about trying to find something to stick with the people that do the work. And those were conversations we had with our marketing partners and internally. And we also thought like, well, sometimes you want to be a little unique, right? Like, and you need to stand out. And the way to stand out was to focus on the people that do the work because that's who does the work, not just the trade. And everybody goes around and says heating and cooling, right? Like everybody says that. And I think we do that because we assume that consumers aren't smart enough to understand what an HVAC technician is, but they are. They know what HVAC means, right? They know what HVAC means. They know who an electrician is, not electrical. They know who electricians are.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
know
that's a
who
good point.
plumbers are, right? They don't need plumbing. They know who plumbers are. And when they talk, that's how they talk, right? So That was the
I got my
idea.
plumber down the street. I'll give. Hey, I got an electrician. I know a guy who does an electrician who can help you with that. I
Yeah.
think that's more. It's a more natural to. You know what? You're tapping into something which is more for consumers. Like the other way of doing it is more like the way the trades would do it, but the way you're doing it is the way consumers would do it. Have you put some thought in? Is
That's
that just by
exactly why
accident
we
or
did
is
it.
that on purpose?
No, no, that's exactly how we did it. Even when we did Eco Plumbers, it was that. I know a lot of places call themselves plumbers, but it was about thinking about how the consumer search, right? And I was thinking when I went back and was thinking to the future, it was like, how would I look? Well, if I'm looking up plumbers or plumbing today or rotor, what would I do? Well, Eco Plumber, right? And Eco Plumber would be the person that does all the future things that you would need done in your home, right? So that's about the vision, right? I think, and again, back to the question is like, what's the biggest pitfall is like, well, not having a vision and clarity to where you're going. You're going to screw a lot of this up along the way, and we have too. We've had to rebrand, we've redone language, and we've done things, but it's just those are all part of the evolution of growing. But the biggest pitfall, I believe, is not having a clear vision to where you're going first,
And I think
because then you have anything to work towards. What are
I
you
think
doing?
I think the vision in eco plumbers, electricians, and HVAC technicians seems like it focuses on people. That's where I'm noticing. I'm noticing that it's not a technically built. It's not a technical palace of people built, but it's a people palace in a way. Does that make sense? Is that part of the vision that you said you had to make a choice between? It's going to be more of a technical business where we focus on all that, or more of a people business where we focus on that? It seems to me that I'm just as an observer that the focus has been on people and not, and then once you got good people to get that technical part built on them into them. Tell us about that, the focus versus the technical versus people there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, the idea is like we want it to be about the people that do the work, right? Because we're tradespeople, right? I'm a tradesperson. I'm proud of the trades, right? There's like, I think, no, that's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. It saved my life in many ways, the trades ads. And Joe's given you, look at the opportunities you've had, right? The trades, being proud of being a tradesperson is important, right? To me, so the first thing is like, let's focus on the people and be proud of being plumbers, electricians, HVAC technicians, or any trade that you may do, right? Be proud of that. Like, tradespeople keep America going. They keep the world going. They do so many great things, right? Without it, we live in a third world country without these things operating. So, and the people that do that are the most important, right? And it gets lost a lot in business. I understand we all kind of go this way a little bit, that way, but the idea was really get good people, and then we built the Eco University, a school that we train people into the trades, right? We've graduated, I think, 140 people now through our school and brought them into the trades, right? And that were never in the trades, never were in the trades at all. And now these people are tradespeople. Most of them are plumbers, and we started through the school our first HVAC, and we don't have an electrical program yet, but we will, right? But we've hired electricians. So it's really about the people, bringing the right people into the trade, teaching them the trade, and then getting them out there to earn a great living for themselves and to keep growing a trade that is important to anybody's listening to this podcast or podcasts like this is your livelihood. This is what you should be proud of, and we should be building great tradespeople to do great work every day. And that's what we want. Do we screw it up? Absolutely. Do we make mistakes? Of course. Have we hired the wrong people at times? Yeah, absolutely we have. But we've done it right more times than we've done it wrong. And that's the reason why we've been able to keep moving forward. And as our team talks about it, I think one thing that we try to do every day that I do believe that we're trying to do better than our competition per se, right? In marketplace or in other places is I think we try harder. We just try harder, but we screw it up by trying harder. And that's okay.
That's definitely very fair. I definitely see that. You got to where you're at because it is the effort that people make to do it. And I think, going back to the vision aspect of things, I was trying to figure out, like when I actually visited there, I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I said, man, it's like the amount of effort. How do they keep this effort moving, focused? And I think that the vision is it. So now you have a vision on the educational for a new employee who starts at the university and then winds up in one of your trucks and becomes an employee here and helps your customers. There's also a vision for the customer that you want to see the journey that they're going to take, right? Did you guys, and you talk about the goals you had when you wrote that down? How long did it take you to kind of just write those goals down and write down for each one of those journeys? Because it sounds like there's multiple journeys. The financial journey the company's got to take too. I know the vision it's easy to say, but it definitely has some complexity to it. Would you agree with that, Aaron? That there's some
Yeah, I
things that
agree.
there's
So I
different
think,
visions inside the vision in a way.
yeah, they develop into more, right? But I think what happens, I think I was in a good spot where I just needed to get to work, and I was dumb enough not to know all the complexity of things, right? And I
Uh-huh.
never worked in a service business, so I wasn't jaded by all these other things. And I say that as like just dumb enough that I didn't overthink it. I just said, okay, here's the goal. And as I go, these things will have to unpack as we go forward, right? Like I didn't sit down and go, all right, I need to write out, this is the people goal, this is the financial goal, these are all the
Yeah.
goals. It's like, all right, I'm going to move in this direction to this big number, but I know I'm going to have to learn these things. And as you went
Uh-huh.
along, it's like, okay, this is definitely how I want the environment to feel. I want it to feel upbeat. I want it to be motivating. I want it to feel inspired. I want people to be proud of the trades. I want people to know the story of the trades and how it saved my life. I want it to be part of saving their lives because it has, right? And I wrote in some of the journal things that I've put up on presentations and other stuff is like, I'll be in the business. My business will be in the business of saving the day and protecting the future. I will be in the business of saving people's dreams, right? And lives, right? Through the trades, right? So that was there. So I did kind of have that, but that didn't happen right away. That happened as I started to realize more like, okay, I need that. Then it was like, all right, financially, like, what do we need to do? We joined Nexstar, right? It's like, I'm trying here. I don't know everything. We joined Nexstar as a network to learn more about the business, right? Itself, right? There. Joe, I met you before I actually joined Nexstar. I needed sales, right? I was like, I don't know how to, I'm not a salesperson, right?
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
naturally can communicate and sell. And some of this has been developed over time as we reinvent ourselves. We get better at communicating, better at telling stories, per se, right? But I met you, right? 12 years ago, I think it was. I looked you up. I'm online, like looking for this. And that was when it was contractorselling.com, right? And met you, and I was like, I need to know how to sell. And I went on some of your, not on some, I went on your classes. I watched all your videos on total immersion. We did it all. I did it all 12 years ago, and learned a lot of how to sell from you and what you did, right? And then as we went along, we needed to learn how to operate an organization. And right at that point, we felt like Nexstar was the best thing for us at that time for
Mm-hmm.
operating organization, which I think you could understand 12 years ago, right? And
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
so that's what we did. So that was the next evolution. And so to answer your question, I think I'm answering your question. I'm saying that they all unfolded as you moved forward, right? Because you knew you were moving forward far enough. Do you need them all? Yeah. But I guess just people get so caught up in like, well, I got to know all this and this and this and all these things before I do something. It's like, just start moving,
Mm.
right? Just start moving, and the evolution of it works. And anybody that I know, all the guys I'm friends with in the industry, people that I've known and done that have been successful, have all done the same thing. That nobody knew 100%. They just started moving in a direction and working, and then the pieces they kind of fall in place. It's just weird to explain. They don't fall in place by
Well, I think
accident
we have.
because
I think
you're
we have the.
working.
I think we have the number three. I think we have the number three thing, right? It's like number one, get that vision, right? Figure out, go places and meet people and see things. And number two, create that goal and start documenting and writing it down and make sure you got this down. And number three, don't stand stationary, or the status quo is not going to get you to where you want to go. Sitting in the same place. That's a really that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that the universe rewards those people who take action. And I think that's and I think you figure out the next problem one thing after the other. It's not just, hey, let's sit back and plan and not do anything and wait for 2 years. It sounds like this is something we're going to jump into it, and we're going to solve problems one at a time. It's like how do you undo a ball of yarn or whatever that's all tangled up? You just undo one knot at a time, and next thing you know, it's untangled. Is that a fair way of analogy or a metaphor we could use on that, would you say?
For sure. I mean, I think that's been the story of how we've gone forward. And then as you evolve, you get maybe a little more strategic, right? I do think there's three things that are, when you want to think about it, is one is, yes, you need knowledge. So you do need to understand what you're going to do, right? You can't just be completely blind to stuff, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
start a
yeah.
business and not file the paperwork properly. Like you need to get the knowledge and understand it, right? I'm just using that as a basic fundamental, right? You need knowledge, then you do need a strategy, right? Then you need a strategy. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And then you got to execute, right? So a lot of people could go out and get the knowledge. This is one thing I have said to myself too. I do this too. It's like there's so much information and knowledge available now that there's no way you can't know what to do at this point. Like there's lots of podcasts out there like this. There's groups, there's networks, there's groups online, like knowledge is available. Strategy is also basically available. Most of the people are giving the strategy to you at this point in time. Like, right, Joe, you have a strategy, you have your playbooks, right? You have your stuff. Everybody has their stuff, their strategies, there's strategy everywhere. So where does it really come down to? It comes down to execution, right? It's executing. Executing is the hardest thing ever. And that means you have to get up every day and do it over and over and over. And we have our problems at executing. We have our problems with knowledge, strategy, and executing, right? But the thing is, when I thought about those over time, the biggest thing, it did even a text with some friends today is like, you know why we had a little back and forth? I think one of the reasons why we won is it doesn't have to be that complicated. We get up every day and we just re-execute every single day, right? You just try again and you try again and you try again and you try again, right? And I'll say, people ask me sometimes what they think was the success for me, and I don't know, I can't pinpoint what it was. I do think a vision was in it, did this, but the one thing I do know that I did every day is I showed up every day, no matter what day it was, what time it was, how many hours it took, I showed up. I never did not show up. I just showed up every day. And you know what? There's a decade of showing up and feeling like nothing ever happened. And then within a decade after that, things just started unfolding, because I don't know why. It just, maybe that was the time the universe finally said, you put in enough work. You've proven that you want to do it. And maybe I'm going way high level
No,
here
you
with
got
that
it. You
type of
got it.
stuff. But at some point it kind of said, okay, you've put in the work, you proved it. So now it's your turn to reap some of those rewards for the decade of hard work of learning and working and executing day in and day out.
But when I was at Eco Plumber, like plumbers, electricians, and HVAC technicians, I just make sure I could get it right. What I experienced there was something that I was not really prepared for. I was prepared for a lot of things, but when I saw I sat down, we had that first 9 a.m. meeting with the management team at 9 a.m. And what I really experienced, which I think would really be, if I could, I mean, I did film a little bit of it. I'm not sure what to do with the film, because it was like, I need to film this because it's so good. Was Byron, who is the, I believe, what's the title
VP
he
of
holds at,
operations. VP of
yeah,
operations.
the VP of operations. He was holding a meeting with all the leadership of the company. And what I did witness there was a great amount of accountability. Now, has accountability always been part of the organization, or something that you've been adding layers of accountability over the years? Because that, to me, is one of the things where you can have this thing, you're moving forward, but then nobody's accountable to doing things to the outcome we're looking for, in a way, right? And when I saw that, truthfully, when I saw that, I'm like, man, I see, just I can see right at the bat, so I'm going to help instruct these guys to get to where some things they need. But I'm like, they're actually instructing me right now on some things I need with the accountability. I'm like, I just got a lesson here for myself, and the value of my trip was tenfold for me. I got something out of this too. Talk about that part of it. When did that first get adopted? Because that's the thing that separates you to get to that 40 million, 50 million, that 100 million you're going to get to. I can see it happening now. That increased my vision. Like, this is going to happen. 100 million. I was like, no doubt. I had 100%. When I left, I'm like, yep, we're going to get this thing to 100 million, just based on all these. But that was the big piece of it. Tell me about the accountability that Byron and the rest of the team kind of works together to achieve. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So every week on Monday, we have that meeting. It's at 9:15. We've had it forever, for years. We've had that meeting. I mean, when I say years, like, it's been an evolution of it, right? There's times where it's been just an update meeting. We get on there, then there was kind of accountability, then it lost it. And then people are like, oh, this meeting's too long. And so we've done this, right? So again, it's just going through the cycles, right? Sometimes you got to undo things to do it, to realize you end up right back at the same spot you started because it was actually the best thing to do. But if you didn't work through that evolution, then everybody would have still been wondering, is this the right thing to be doing, right? And I say that because sometimes we abandon things that we think that were good because we think something was better, but then we think something was better, but then we realize that what was better was actually what we were doing, so we should have just been doing that, right? And we've done that in this company many times, but also think it's necessary because it has to happen so that you can get back to what's actually meaningful and done. So that meeting has gone on for years. We've always done that. We used to be really strong when we were smaller, which has got harder with multi-locations at daily huddles too, right? By daily huddles, we're accountability to it. So we've really turned it into a weekly accountability meeting. Everybody puts their numbers in for the week. what their projections are, what you saw, right? They talk about last week's numbers. What did they hit last week? Where were they? Where were some shortfallings? What could they do this week? Where are they going this week? What are we projecting this week for each business unit? For I say each business, each location with each trade in every location is on the call. So this is not like a couple high level stuff. This is level down managers are in it too, right? They're all in it to understand what the plan is and what they're doing. And they got to tell that story, even with their GMs, right? So, and that does create accountability. And what we really have done it for, again, to get it back with Byron picking this up as he came into the position too, was we really wanted people to learn from each other, right? Too. It wasn't just all about accountability too. It wasn't just like, oh, you didn't hit your numbers, we want to call you out on this call. What we wanted it to be was, hey, well, you didn't hit it in HVAC in Dayton market, but we did in this market, right? So what did you guys do here last week that was working? Or what happened here? Or how can we facilitate something there? Or what communication do we need to improve? So a lot of it's just learning the business and talking about the business, because that's important. Like, I don't think people spend enough time talking about the business sometimes, and then people don't really get to learn the business because they don't talk about the business. Right? Does that make sense, Joe? And talking
It
about the
does. You know,
business.
to me, the average organization that's mediocre learns it and says, "I got it," and that's it. You learn it and you keep learning it when because I can see it all the time in my thing. I have 33,000 people I coach, right? So I can see it's like, man, I can't believe how far you guys are off after 10 years of doing this. Like, I had a company yesterday that been with us for 10 years. I'm like, man, you got to get back to the magic moments. You got to get back to making the options. You got to get back. We got to get back to this. And and they're like, yeah, we do. What the hell do we do? So in a way, you learn it, but then there's the execution of it, and then there's the drop off that can occur. I think that weekly thing you guys did, to me, and you're right, it wasn't punitive, or nobody left that meeting feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst man, I'm the worst person. Everybody's like, oh good, now I got an answer. That's what I noticed about the meeting. When I say accountability is mainly a celebration of things that are working, so other
Yeah.
people can share in the bounty of that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody thinks accountability is somebody didn't do it. Let's shame them to it, right? And look, I'm not opposed to some shaming if you don't do stuff in this world. I come from a little bit of the old school, and I say that in an appropriate way. But I mean, just you do have to be able to speak it in front of people too. It can't just be hidden. And if you didn't do it, like, okay, well, what are you going to do? And how can we help you get there? Now, again, if we don't help and they don't get there over time, then there's different conversations, right? But to answer your question from accountability, is like, yeah, I think we've always been pretty structured and consistent with things that we do. Have we been as accountable all the time to the outcomes of things? I mean, I guess I'd say maybe and maybe not at times, because I think it's the real answer. If I say I'm just like, oh yeah, we're so accountable, we have LMA, leadership and management accountability down so hard. I mean, there'd be a lie, right? Because it's not. I don't know anywhere that I've gone that does that. And if they do, then they're really at a level. And I'm not saying that in the sense of trying to protect that we don't do it well. It's just it happens everywhere. Everybody's standing in
Yeah.
the same businesses, seeing the same problems, dealing with the same things, right? But I will say the thing that, again, that I mentioned earlier is just showing up every day. Is if the meeting's at 9:15, you have the meeting at 9:15 every week, no matter how good or bad it is, until you get it right, right? And then sometimes you might need to call a timeout and say, okay, we've had to call timeouts before. Say, okay, we need a timeout for a week or two. We need to recollect and reset what we're going to do and why we're going to do it, right? And then let's come back to this again. But we always come back to it. We never say timeout, bye-bye. We might say timeout. We need a week or two to reset, refocus, and get aligned, get everybody kind of communicated, get some one-on-one conversations, maybe resend out a little agenda to shake it up, to change it, and then reset. We always go back to it. Mondays, Wednesdays. I have a Wednesday meeting. The only reason why I didn't have it this week was because last week was when you were here was training. Every Wednesday at 7 a.m., I do a call with the whole entire field. Every Wednesday at 7, right? The only reason why we didn't have it this last Wednesday, Wednesday,
I was there.
last
You're
week.
doing my little meeting
Because
with
you were
me.
there.
Yeah.
You were there. It was there with you. But we do that every Wednesday. And we get on the call, myself, Mike, and all the leadership with all of the field. And we talk to them. We tell them what's going on. We ask them, we get feedback from them. We push out information, and we do it. And whether it's good or bad, some weeks are better than others. Some are the communication's better or not. I guess my point is that, but you're doing it all the time. And then people understand that. And then you have to figure out a way to fill the void. If it's not good and you're not getting what you want as a leader, and as leaders in the business, you've got to figure out how to make it better. It's not your people. The people aren't going to have to go, I'm going to tell you how to make this meeting better. You can ask questions to get it, but at the end of the day, it's your point to go out and ask those questions, then come back and make the meeting better and more engaging.
Wow. That is a lot of information, and definitely here's what I experienced on that day when I saw this whole thing. I said, yeah, there was pretty much everybody was succeeding. Everybody was above so number one, everybody had to commit to their own goal. It wasn't like the leader said, here's your goal. It's like they made their own goal. And I said, well, it's up to you. He said, how about this? And he goes like, what's your goal? You have to tell us. And notice that it wasn't just doing it that way. Number two, so what can we do to get you there? What's the next step? What's the game plan we can do? Do you have a game plan, or do I need to help you with that? The manager who had sort of a game plan, but I think he said, you know what, I'm going to help you with it. Let's meet today at 2:00. And they met, and they sat at that meeting too, and they did come up with a game plan, and everybody felt confident going forward. Okay, let's do this together. And that's the thing I noticed about it, is they're doing it together. Not you got plumbers, electricians, HVAC technicians, and excavators, and different other divisions and office people, but everybody's trying to work together. There is no barriers between the different leadership groups. Tell us about that, to remove the barriers, and then we'll wrap this up. I know I'm probably going on too long, but I just wanted to talk. That's one thing I thought was really cool about the lack of barriers. Nobody was afraid to talk to another manager of another different department. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it's just always trying to have an open door policy as a company in general. So I think that stems from that, and making sure that it has been a learning culture, right, together too, through training and doing stuff. And also realizing that we just have a lot of we do have a lot of new managers. We're scaling, we're growing. We've changed some leadership in the last year, and some senior leadership, just due to growth and some opportunity for change, and move some people in different seats, and new people coming up in the seats from in other roles. So we needed them all to come together, right? And we need them to feel that they can communicate and share between each other. And we all win together, right? We don't win individually. Yeah, your department can get celebrated for winning, but at the end of the day, like, Eco wins and loses as one team. All the department heads their comp is tied to the total line, like what happens for them. So it's not like just their line. So it's like the whole department has to win, and then senior leadership is above that, is to the company. So we've tried to do alignments in those areas to make it that it is a win and lose together, within the much as you can, right? You still have people that need to have their apartments. But I hope I'm answering that question that way is right. Is
Yeah, no, it's a good answer. I like it. I like to make sure everybody's working together is the answer. Well, I tell you what, Aaron, I definitely feel you're going to get to that $100 million, and I'm definitely happy to be part of that journey. And I can't wait to join you there when you see that $100 million. Here's the final question, and then we can wrap this up. What happens when you get to that $100 million? Now what? What's the next thing after that? Is it another goal, reinvent it again, or is this that's going to be let's keep it at 100 million and hold it? What do you think is the next step from there?
I think of course there's another goal. I see Eco brand throughout Ohio growing to 250 million. I think as we think about into the future, we're fortunate enough to have, potentially, that big billion is the next kind of number, right? Billion under management. So yes, there's other goals that have been mapped out. And no, that's the big goal. That was the one, right? So I'm more focused on just accomplishing the one, that's it, and the journey that got us there, and then taking all the lessons learned to 100 million, and hopefully taking those and moving that into the next chapter of what we do, and whether that's 250 million to $1 billion. But no, it's not just going to hold there. Then I don't think built that way by any means. But again, it's and when I say that, it's like the world doesn't just stop there. I understand. It's like, oh, you hit that, and now what, right? Well, you want to celebrate it, and you want to reward yourself in a way of saying, and all the people that helped you get there. So there's a lot of work to do still to get there. We're targeted for 2025. I gave myself a decade. When I officially wrote it down, I gave myself 1 decade to do it. So 2020, end of 2025 is the year we are on pace to do that. And that just tells you how powerful a goal is when you set a goal and you set a deadline. And I wrote it down over 10 years ago. And I said, I'm giving myself a decade to get to this goal, and I'm going to get to work year in and year out, but you got to have a deadline on it. But no, it's not, the game's not over. It's just the next level of the game.
I can't wait till we come out. I can't wait till I tell you what, if you get to that 100 million mark, I'm coming out there on me this time. Okay.
On
I'm
you.
gonna hold me to it. I'm coming out there on me because I want to be part of that
Yeah,
celebration and high five everybody. And I can see it's going to happen. Aaron, thanks so much for taking your time to be on this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
yeah, Joe. Thanks, man. I appreciate you over all the years, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you again on the next podcast, everyone. Have a good one.